Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Twitter space today. I'm Mariana Kotik, Head of Marketing at Third Academy, and we are delighted to have Carly Godlewski, Community Builder and Third Academy Community Manager, as our special guest today. So we're eager to tap into her knowledge on community management, engagement, and growth in the Web3 space. So this promises to be an insightful and exciting conversation. So let's get started. Hello, welcome, Carly. How are you today?
Hey, thanks for inviting me, and I'm super excited to chat about this.
As there's a lot of new people in the community, I would love for you. I mean, you to start talking about your origin story. How did you get involved in Web3, and what inspired you to focus on community building in the Web3 space?
Awesome. So, yeah, how I got into blockchain was basically around like late 2018 and early 2019 is when I started meeting more people online. I was just started to get onto different spaces, and one of the first people I actually spoke to was Rami Al-Sabek, and he is the founder or co-founder of Dream Conduit, which is the first of its kind carbon neutral nonprofit DAO with the founder role removed. So it's kind of a really interesting concept. A lot of the DAOs we see right now in Web3 still have a very specific founder role. And basically, talking to him a few years ago, I was really captivated by the idea of like a DAO that was a true, I would say, like horizontal hierarchy as opposed to like a vertical hierarchy with somebody still at the top, kind of making all the decisions behind the scenes. And from that, I started learning about NFTs because at that time, Rami had also been working on a project called BitNifty that helped people in countries to still be able to make NFT art where cryptocurrency was restricted. And at that time, I had no idea what an NFT was. And every time somebody like talked about it to me, it sounded very foreign. I had no idea of like anything I was hearing. But for some reason, I was still very intrigued. And so I started to take a lot of classes. I took the class, it's called Blockchain Revolution in FinTech Services or something like that through INSEAD School of Business. Basically, it taught you all about blockchain and how it was revolutionizing the financial industry. And I started kind of getting into like back then, still like I met people that had gone into the blockchain space around like 2014, and they were talking to me about how everything really started and the movement that had started and how it was about really taking self sovereignty over your own finances, and that led me down the path of like, wait, where did this all really start? And learning about public cryptography and how back then, in the I think 80s and 90s, cryptography. Uh, I think I might be right here. I should look it up. It might be like 70s, but um, basically, like Whitfield Diffie is somebody that created public cryptography. When back then, really, the NSA was the only organization that was using cryptography, and people like everyday people like us really didn't have access to um, encrypted communication, and so there was a fight between what we would call like the cypherpunks, people that really were here for having a way to like encrypt our communication so that we actually had private communication, and then in turn private finances, and the NSA who really didn't want that information to be out. They didn't want people to have access to private communication. And so, anyway, public cryptography was created, and with that, David Chaum created DigiCash. And DigiCash was this way to make transactions and make them trustless without the interference of a third party. So again, it made like people have access to self-sovereign finances and have ownership over their own finances. And so um, then, of course, DigiCash actually went bankrupt or filed for bankruptcy or something, and went under. But that kind of was the precursor to Bitcoin and kind of what we see today. And, now we have all these other cryptocurrencies, but Bitcoin kind of still continues to remain to be like the market has really identified it as, I think, the standard bearer of what we think of as cryptocurrency and financial sovereignty and ownership. So anyway, I learned the history of that, and through all that, I got into I guess what we call Web3, with the idea of having that ownership over our own data, and this kind of like the evolution of the internet is what I think of as Web3, because there's so many, I would think, personal definitions that I kind of like to stick to the definition of. It's the evolution of the internet. It's the combination of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and blockchain technology. I was kind of really excited about all of the new, like, projects that I saw that were starting, and I was excited about it. So I kept on learning. I started a podcast called Blockchain for Beginners, where I was documenting my journey of learning about blockchain, and I got to meet amazing people in the space and talk to like some of the people that like Ryan Zur is somebody who I got to speak with. He actually bought Human One from Beeple. So that was really exciting. And then I got to learn about what Dialectic was, which is his company, which helps people to get basically people that have earned a lot of money from cryptocurrency actually have a really hard time doing a lot of things with it, which a lot of people don't think about. Like, if you have a lot of crypto, can you go buy a house still, or can you do all these things? So he kind of helps people with that. And anyway, then I started noticing that there's a lot of projects that still needed community. And long story short, I think that the future is actually human. So much of what we talk about is that artificial intelligence and all these things are going to take away that. But the future is human. So I got into community, and here I am today. It's a long story.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I can totally relate to that because I still remember the time when I first learned about it and I started to understand, okay, what is this Web3 idea and what is this blockchain idea? And that click when you say, okay, this is really truly different. So it was like, okay, this is not like the same. So I love to mention like, okay, Web3 for me is a kind of an evolution, but also a revolution because it's different from what we have experienced before. And at least, I mean, it has the potential to have to bring new possibilities to the space and to have a new way to see things. And I love that you bring like a lot of a little history of the ecosystem because I think we tend to forget really quickly about everything that happened in the last years, and it happened so much during the last years. I mean, here like I think in this space like a week is like a year, so there's so many things happening at the same time. And of course, I love to like that you mentioned that community is the key and is like the center of the space because also we are talking about community, and I know this is your passion. So I think the way we see communities in Web3 is so different, and I would love you to explain a little bit how different is this from Web2 and a little bit about your passion and about what are some examples of successful Web3 communities that you know or you have been part of?
Yeah, so I think obviously community, or like the way that we talk about community in Web3, I think actually in a weird way we're going back to like this archaic, we're bringing back archaic values almost, which I think is very positive. Community has been something that humans do for since the beginning of time. But somewhere along the way, almost with Web 2, it felt like we got very siloed almost, and a lot of what we saw with what were supposed to be social networks was actually just algorithms feeding us things, and then us not actually maybe engaging in a way that is quite meaningful to us. And so with Web3, or the idea that kind of started, like when we went through all that history with self-sovereignty and decentralization, I think with community that also comes back to like archaic values of let's actually have community and what does community actually mean. And in the most basic sense, I think it means like being in a group of people where you feel safe, you feel connected, where you can be yourself, and hopefully where you are not only getting something out of it for yourself, like you're learning something, or it's helping you, or it's enhancing your life in some way, but also where you are giving value to the people around you. But then when maybe life, because we all are humans, goes up and down. We're not robots. Where it's okay to be down as well. You know what I mean? So we have to like have
Yeah.
communities where everything works. And I think in Web3, that hopefully is at the core of what we're talking about when we talk about community, and not just simply for the sake of selling something. But for business models, I understand that community, and we can talk about this, of course, community is a key part of any business, I think, going forward in Web3. And because in Web2, we saw like all these social platforms and people building audiences, which, yes, in the beginning of forming a community, you kind of have to have people know who you are, that you exist, and things like that. But I think it's about just being able to connect on a deeper level with the people that you're actually trying to reach. And some examples of some Web3 communities. Again, I really like Dream Conduit because they have grown over the last few years, and they've stuck true to their mission of helping creatives to get into using NFTs and Web3 in a way that suits the individual best. Because as a community, if you're trying to make every person conform to, you know, something, that's not really a community. Because even in a community, everybody is an individual. And they have spaces that they hold and teach people a lot, and so I really like Dream Conduit. And I'm also a part of BFF, um, and I like BFF because they have like different subgroups that you can join. So you don't actually have to be a part of like every single thing that they're doing, but they do have like clubs that you can join, and it's kind of cool because it makes the connection more intimate, I would say. So those are two. I can think of some others if you needed.
No, I think it's great. And I think it's good to have examples because sometimes it helps you to understand what's the key to a successful community. Because, for example, you mentioned that the difference between audience and community and these connections on a deeper level that we're looking for in Web3 communities. So probably it's good to understand that could be one of the keys to a successful community, like to get people to connect in a deeper level, or the sense of belonging, or the things you share and the value you add to a community. But I love you to go through these ideas of these keys of a successful community, what really works and what really makes the difference in a community.
I think all communities are different, and it kind of comes down to the goal that you have. Right now, I've been noticing a lot of people that are creating things in Web3. So people are creating like decentralized social media apps and different tools to use, and even community management tools. Um, Darn, I wish I remembered the name right now, but there's a tool that I just found that someone is creating. So it's in its beta phase, but it helps communities create leaderboards like really easily. And so
It's good.
even those tools, they need communities, right? Or they will need communities in order to beta test their tools, and they'll also need communities to like have customer support. So those are two kind of different types of communities, but communities can evolve over time. So just because you start off maybe with a beta testing community doesn't mean that it doesn't evolve into like a customer support community. In Web3, we have like communities around NFT projects that are based solely on, I would say like storytelling almost, where people get extremely involved in like the creation of the story itself. And then what happens afterwards, like maybe they purchase an NFT and they're invited into a gaming community or something like that. And there's a lot of like, uh, what's the word? You know, the generative games where it's like you go online and it's all written and you have to like answer a question and then it takes you on to like the next chapter, but it's kind of like a game. I forget what it's called. There's communities around that too. So I would think the key to success is really understanding the kind of community that you are trying to create or that you need to create, because I think sometimes people say community as like a catch-all. They're like, oh, it's just
Yeah.
like the group of people, but it's not. Like once you understand the type of community that you're creating, then you can kind of um, go on from there, and it becomes a lot easier to understand who you're actually trying to reach and why those people would actually benefit from being in your community.
Yeah, I think that's a great first step. So, but I think probably a lot of people have like great ideas for communities, or probably they are part of a project and they need their community to grow. And the thing is, like a good product or a good project is not always like guarantee of success when you're talking about growing a community. So I would love to start like thinking, okay, let's pretend I have a project and I have a great idea and a solid value that I want to add to the community, but how do I start? What should I, consider first? Like you mentioned before, okay, have a good idea and understand what is this community for. But what other things you think are like the first step for growing a community?
When you're growing a community, you really have to understand that it's not gonna just happen. Um, it actually takes a lot of work. So for businesses or anybody that does have an idea, really think hard about whether you actually want to start a community, because it's going to take a lot of time to actually nurture. Like it doesn't just happen. People don't just continue to show up or continue to like participate, especially in the beginning. Once you've maybe been around for like a few years and you have key members that you've nurtured those relationships, and they continue to show up, it'll get easier because you'll start to see people that become leaders, and you can help them to then help other community members. But in the beginning, it's going to be you in the community hub, wherever you set it up, reaching out to members, connecting with them, understanding why they've joined, what they need out of it, and then also doing the work to connect them with other members. So it's going to be you saying, hey, so and so also is interested in this. You guys should connect. Or if somebody asks a question, maybe as the community manager, you don't jump in and like answer the entire question right away, because you want other people to like feel okay to answer. But maybe you say, "Oh, I know that so and so definitely knows the answer to this," and you can tag them, and then help to facilitate those relationships, and then making sure that you like for every member that you get, especially in the beginning, like connecting with them, talking to them, and understanding their story, so that they feel okay to show up, and then individually inviting people to events, because like I said, like especially in the beginning, um, people aren't just going to do it for the sake of doing it. It does take a lot of work behind the scenes, even if it does look easy or a community makes it look easy. Like, I guarantee you there's been a lot of hours put in behind the scenes to that. And for getting your first members, having a, like you said, having an excellent product or like a reason for people to join is key, I think. And like, I think that also comes down to, if you're an individual, like the way that we really reach people today is either through word of mouth, through marketing in some way, or through social media. And if you can show up on social media and literally just show what you're doing, um, and show like something cool that you've made, created, or something cool that you've added to your community, I think people understand that and they join because of that. So, for an example, like with Third Academy, I know that we have another course coming up soon, and so I think that we will be showing, I think, the ins and outs of like what that course is going to be, and really like showing why people would want to take the course. And through that, it becomes a lot easier to know who we're reaching. And I think anybody can do that today with social media. And then finally, my final thing would be, especially in the beginning, when people join, you can have people join in a group all at once, which works really well, especially if people sign up to a certain course, or they sign up to a cohort, or they sign up to like join all together. Or of course, we have like open communities like on Discord where people just join when they can. But having that onboarding process that really welcomes people and lets people know like how to uh, how to use the community hub and invite them into the actual culture of the community, because every community is going to have a different language, then that is what really helps people. And I know Daniel's here today. Daniel last week literally said like the best thing about onboarding that I've heard. He said that when you onboard a member into a community, you want them to feel better after onboarding than when they first joined. And that's like the key of onboarding, right? So the way people do that, I'll use Discord as an example, is some people like have a video that immediately when you join, it shows you exactly all of the channels, how to use their Discord, and maybe even they tell you like, here's some of the cool slang that our community uses, and if somebody says this word and you don't know what they're talking about, this is what it means. And then you invite them to connect with other members, or you invite them to maybe like put in their social bio that they're part of your community, so other members can see that, and then they start to engage not only in your community hub but outside of your community hub. And that's what really creates a community, I think, because then they have real relationships. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to remind everyone that this space is meant to be interactive. So please, Daniel, if you want to add something to this, or if any of you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll open the mic for you so you can ask your questions. But yeah, I think onboarding it's like quite important for like keeping people interested and engaged in the community, and like see the value of the community, right? Otherwise they will like join and then they will drop soon, because that's another challenge, I guess. I would love to ask you, what are the main challenges other than the ones you mentioned already? But I think people like dropping, or like, let's say it in a positive way, keep people interested and participating in the community. That's a big challenge, right?
Yeah, that's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. And one of the things that I came to the conclusion of was, again, like, if people don't have a reason to like check in with your community, they're probably not going to. Like, I join so many Discords all the time, and the ones that I actually go back to is like, oh, I actually have a reason to like go back into them on a regular basis. So let's say you set up a day or something per week where your members know that something's going to be happening, or a new piece of content is going to be dropping that is actually going to be important to them, or there's a networking session. Like, they need some reason to actually come back and start to engage. So I would set that up pretty early on. And then as well, like, if you have a community hub but all you're doing is like uh posting things in there, and then you're not actually like giving people a chance to form relationships or connections in a more intimate setting. So you kind of have to like set that up as well. So maybe you do like some networking events, or like maybe you have a book club or something, but you set up like a reoccurring thing maybe per month, where people know, okay, I don't always have to like show up maybe like um 3 days a week or something, but I can show up once a month, I have some friends here. They're doing something cool. They have a book club for an hour or so, and something like that. I don't know. I feel like that is what's important. And most of the time, I think as community managers, we kind of want to see that people are active all the time. And in business for stakeholders, yes, that does matter, because if you can show that you have, mm, I would say, a community of people that are getting something out of it and it's growing, then that's what they like to see. But at the same time, you have to remember that everybody's a human being and they have lives, right? So if you can give them a reason to show up once a month or something, or like once a week, that's what matters. But you actually have to create that. It doesn't
Yeah,
just happen.
absolutely. And what do you think, what role do incentives and rewards play in a community growth? Because I know some people like them, some people don't like them that much. And regarding this thing that you mentioned about, okay, what makes people coming? If it's not incentives and rewards, what other engagement tactics or tools do we have to keep people engaged in the community?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that people have been critical of POAPs about. It's like, okay, so I get some kind of like token for showing up, but like, what does the actual token do? And there's been a lot of like in the early days, a lot of people were like just giving POAPs away, but like that was it. So it was like, okay, I got all these tokens now, but they don't do anything, and I don't feel any better about it. So I think incentivizing and gamification is really interesting, if only for like short terms. Like you can have a leaderboard in your community, and um, based on like people that show up most frequently, or people that like do something, some kind of action that you're um, I don't remember the word right now. An action that you're kind of monitoring, I would say. Then people that rise up on the leaderboard, maybe they get something at the end of the month, or kind of like a prize in some way. But you can do that through like, of course, like monetary prizes. You can do it through something that your community has. Maybe that it's like a one-on-one with an expert, or like there's so many different things you can actually get creative with. And I would say, like, on the very basic level, the reason people show up is, one, because if it's an educational community, one, they're actually learning something, and the thing that they're learning is actually changing their lives and helping them in some way. Two, they actually have made friends, and they're showing up because they've made friends. um it's like, you all have to think about, like, how is this actually changing somebody's life. And then if you don't actually know, hey, is my community working, then you have to start interviewing your community members, and asking them questions. And then when they give you feedback and tell you, hey, this is how I would like incentivization, or this is what I actually need, and you get enough people saying that, you implement those changes. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and regarding that point, and when you ask yourself, is my community working or not, what metrics do you look at?
Yeah, so you can look at, like, I think the bounce rate of, like, uh how frequently are people joining my community versus how frequently are they leaving, and why. And if you see a lot of people are exiting, start conducting exit interviews if you can, to understand what's actually taking place, and what they feel they aren't getting as to why they're leaving, and then of course change that like immediately. Um, you can also look at, like, how many people are joining what you have to offer. So if you're running a course or something like that, how many people are actually actively signing up and then following through to take that course. Um, and if you're hosting events, how many people are showing up to the events. But then in terms of, like, engagement, I think there's different levels of engagement. So where I think people that just want active discords or something don't take into account maybe the quality of engagement. So there's I know Paul Rita did a space on this, like, what is engagement. It was like engagement versus something. I can't remember, Paul, Rita, but basically we had this discussion on like quality engagement versus quantity engagement. That's what it was. And I was on the side of quality engagement, but I would see like how many people have actually made friendships and how many people are actually talking amongst each other in a way that matters versus just kind of saying good morning or something like that in the chat.
That's great. And Marina, if you want to open your mic and add something to this, I would love to hear what's your opinion regarding this point. I don't know if you're available, but if you are available, let us know. But yeah, I think it's so important what you mentioned before, and also, I mean, there's I would love you to like guide us through the process of building or thinking about engaging techniques, or probably you've been part of a community and you have like you've been part of something that was great and you said, okay, this is a great idea, I love this, and this was a very successful idea to keep people engaged or even to grow the community. Can you think of an example?
Yeah, the most recent example I've seen is Build Space. Build Space started as a place where people could learn Web3 development and like build things in Web3. um, and they help them do that. So what they've started doing is like when you join, you get sorted into a house. They have like 4 different houses, so it's kind of like Harry Potter. You know, like at the beginning of Harry Potter, where there's like the Sorting Hat, and you have like Gryffindor or Slytherin, Ravenclaw, or Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get sorted into a different house, and then based on that, they give you a Twitter background that you can put on your Twitter. You can put it in your Twitter bio or wherever, and they give you all these different like cool things like a phone background and stuff. You kind of like get this feeling of like, oh, I'm actually in something. And then of course they do events like every week and stuff like that that you can show up to. But it's kind of like just that beginning like thing. You're invited into a space, and now you have like camaraderie with a group of people because there's different houses, and your houses can kind of like compete for different rewards against other houses. So they really in that community use gamification in a really fun way, because you're not actually necessarily winning anything other than just like having fun, but it's
Yeah.
gamification in a way that works. Yeah.
And it makes you feel like you belong to a group and you're part of something and you have like your partners and you can, play games. So I think fun is it's a key word also, right?
Yeah, it's super fun.
And Daniel, welcome. I would love you to join us. And, I don't know if you have a question or you want to share something. I would love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so thanks for being here. I just wanted to add to what Carly was saying, although I joined this space quite late. So, but I think I can't really remember the question anymore. What Carly was emphasizing on just some few minutes back concerning the community growth hack. One of the things about what makes people. I think the question was what you were asking Carly was what makes people join your community or stay in your community. Well,
Yeah,
I just want
both
to,
actually.
yeah, okay. So I think one of the things is I've noticed around most Web3 communities, people, we talked about this on the Discord um, audio lounge session last year. I mentioned something about tokenization, the issue of tokenization all around Web3 communities, and it has been a strong issue because now it's like we're trying to change the focus to let it be community centered. Like it's about the talents in the community, it's about the individuals in the community. But back then, it has always been about the tokenization. So we can't take that out. Like when it comes to social incentives, like rewards, recognition, these are things people like to feel being part of. People want to feel rewarded. People want to feel recognized in the community. People want to feel incentivized. But beyond that, I also think one of the things that makes a community outlive other ones will be storytelling. I always say this. I try to repeat this most times. It's not just storytelling like we usually call it, but when every community member comes up with his or her stories, success stories of failure stories, whatever they've gone through, and also the project being able to show them successes and the failures of the business. Okay, this is what we went through, and this is how we came out of what we went through. This is how we failed, and this is how what's happened, and this is how we came out of it, and this is what we went. Those kind of success stories helps the community bond. It creates this strong bond within the community members. People feel like, okay, yes, I lost money during this crash. I lost money during this. Okay, this is how I can no longer lose money. Okay, I'm more prudent now. Okay, this is how I can be part of a community that is service-based, that is value-based. I can contribute something. I'm not just here to consume content, but I'm also here to also give back what I have consumed. So I think one of the best ways to grow your community, and it's also a hack, is allow the community members be involved in these success stories. Let them share theirs. Let them share their failures. Let them share their mistakes. Let them not be afraid to do that. So if there's this safe harbor and this safe environment for the community members to be able to do that, by the project being able to set a trend or set an example and say, okay, this is who we are. This is what we've done. We've messed up. Okay, maybe probably the CEO can say, okay, I had a startup before, I had to close it. Most people will want to say, okay, why did you close the startup? Okay, I started again. This is the second startup. Okay, this is the third startup. This is the fifth startup. All that can also help the community bond, and they can also say, okay, this is what we are about. This is what we can learn. We came here to learn. We will grow, okay, with the community. So I really think personal success stories, personal failure stories also contributes. Honest stories can contribute to. It's also a very good community growth hack also. So that's just my 2 cents. I just wanted to add. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you for sharing. I totally believe that honesty is a strong bond, and transparency, and also it would makes us human to connect with other people, because we're all human and we all fail and we all have success, and we want to share that with the community. And when we are able to share that with the community, and people like celebrate with us our successes, and kind of our, I don't know, kind of feel bad when we have something wrong. But I think it's good, and it creates this kind of family environment that we all love when we are part of a community. Is that what you mean, right? Well, thank you. And I don't know if you
Bond
oh
within the
yeah.
community. So nobody comes into the community being out of place, No, not just GM, not just highs, also that already brings that sense of while they are your onboarding.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little, at least for me. I don't know if the rest of you're listening, Daniel, correctly, but I'm having some issues.
Are not
Thank you for sharing, Daniel. You're breaking up a little, but I really appreciate, because I really agree with what you said. And regarding the mistakes, some common mistakes that Web3 communities make when trying to grow their community. Carly, what can you mention about it? I mean, what do you think is the worst mistake a community can make when trying to grow?
The worst mistake I think might be looking at maybe almost like vanity metrics in terms of their community. I think that shifted for me in the way that I thought about community, which goes back to maybe like quality engagement. If you have people in your community that aren't really there to be in a community or like give back in some way, or even like not addressing bad behaviors almost, if that makes sense. So sometimes when you grow a community in the beginning, you'll have a lot of people join, but if they're not actually being nice to people when they're answering questions, or they're not really like assisting at all, you have like a bad behavior thing that you have to address, or else it kind of creates this bad culture in the community going forward. And then also maybe not planning out like the onboarding process properly, or like just thinking the fact that if they have a community hub, then that's all that they need, and not actually bringing like from a business point of view. If you're in Web3, um, two last points here. One is like you need more people in the business actually engaged in the community than just the community manager. Most of the time, the CEO or the founder should be involved in the community, in some aspect, to actually see like what people are needing, what people are wanting, um, because that is what's actually driving the growth of the business. Uh, Aside from having like a good product, um, and I see that happen a lot is when most of like the rest of the team is maybe like checked out when they shouldn't be, and also, to Daniel's point, is storytelling, right? We saw a lot of Web3 brands come in and try to start community and sell out NFT projects, but they didn't utilize storytelling. Nobody really knew why they should buy an NFT, or why they should join the community, or why they should even care. And it's because they didn't have a good story. They didn't tell people anything. They just put up a landing page with kind of a crappy roadmap and thought that they would have a community. It doesn't work that way. It takes a lot more work. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And we saw a lot of that during the last bull market, but now in this like bear market we're going through, I think it takes a lot more to keep people engaged and to make people trust on a project and be part of the community, and especially being an active member of the community. So yeah, I think it's a great point that that you mentioned that. And also, what are some effective ways to collaborate with other Web3 communities? Because partnerships are big in Web3. So, what kind of collaborations with Web3 communities help you drive growth and reach new audiences?
Yeah, I think collaborations are something that people should take more seriously and like consider, because just from the example like you mentioned, like so we saw a lot of things happening like in the bull market. A lot of projects grew, a lot of partnerships were made, but at the same time, a lot of those projects aren't really around anymore as well. And some projects even turned out to be kind of crappy, like they didn't really have the best interest of the people at heart. So I think when it comes to partnerships, you actually should do a lot of like vetting to make sure that you're partnering with people that have the same values as you, or like businesses that have the same values as your community, and that hopefully have more of like a long term outlook or mindset on the space in general, and are trying to build a really solid foundation so that they can remain. And then making sure that partnerships aren't just about like appearing to have partnerships, that they're actually like where both parties can benefit each other in some way. So like I think those are the best partnerships. I know overpriced JPEGs, um they have an NFT out, and it's, oh man, I think it's for a gin or something like that. Anyway, it's for it like backs an alcohol brand, and they did partnerships with like V Friends, but that's because obviously like Gary has a wine company called Empathy. So like I think they're like did a collaboration or a partnership with V Friends and the company called Empathy. But that makes sense, right? Because like they're both alcohol brands and they're both in the Web3 NFT space. So that's like a natural partnership. So I would kind of look for ones that make sense and benefit each other. And again, lastly, just word of warning, like do a lot of vetting to make sure that you're not partnering with maybe a project that's kind of scammy. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important because you don't want to be related to someone who's like scamming people or anything. So, yeah, like always on Web3, do your own research and be sure that the community you're partnering with, it's like a solid and strong community and it's adding value to the space. That's so important. And regarding this, the keys for success, I wanted to ask you how important is inclusivity and diversity in Web3 communities, and how do you foster those values in the communities you manage?
I think that's everything because the community, well, one, if you don't have inclusivity or diversity, you don't really have a community because then I don't know what you'd have, but it's not a community. So it's wildly important because you want to be able to support people from all different walks of life and that have different backgrounds than you and different experiences than you. And um, one of the best examples I think would be especially on Discord. So on Discord, you have the option in channels to allow people to send like speech to text, so they can like talk into their device and it will write the message in a Discord channel. And for some Discord channels I've joined, they have that function turned off, but I don't really know. Maybe there's a reason that they do that. But for inclusivity, like I believe that although that's a very small example, I think it's a very important example because especially as we move forward with it, like technology is getting so advanced that now we have like brain computer interfaces. One example is eye gaze. So if you actually can't move your arms or something like that, now you can use the computer with your eyes, and you can actually like play games. And there's a one lady that builds web design, like she builds websites using eye gaze technology. So kind of like the same thing with Discord, where if you open up the speech to text function, you give people a way to actually communicate, and you don't box them into like having to use text, like typing on the keyboards and stuff like that. And so there's like very like all different kinds of ways to make your community more inclusive, but you actually have to care enough to think about it and do it. And put yourself like, think about it and then ask people. Would be like a good a good idea. Like, what do you need? What are you not getting from this community, or what would actually be helpful to you? Is there another way of communicating that would be better, or things like that? So I know that's one example that comes to mind right now.
Yeah, that's great. And you always go back to go and ask your community, talk to them, connect with them, ask them what they need, what they want. So I love that because we need to keep that in mind, right? The most important thing is to connect with your community and understand what they need and what they want.
Yeah, definitely. Because like that's really the only way.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we are particularly a community focused on education, but in general, what role do you see education playing in the growth and development of Web3 communities?
Web3 especially, I think. I don't know. I think in the future we'll get to this point where it might be like Web 2 right now, where kind of like we just jump on social media and we kind of intuitively know how to use it at this point, but there's still um, education around it, like for people that want to start new um, profiles and things like that, or like, So I think education is always going to be a part of it. Is it going to be as like the UX and UI gets better? maybe we'll need less education around some of the technical aspects for things, unless people are like developers. But I think that education is always going to be crucial when we're talking about Web3 in general. And hopefully when we keep the ethos of like what Web3 actually is, right? So people probably, when they join, depending on what kind of niche they're in, I mean, for me, when I started, like I said in the beginning, part of joining was like learning about the history of money, which I never, well, I don't know why we don't learn about that in school, but like learning about the history of
Yeah,
money, why self-sovereign
so true.
finances matter. I know it's weird, and stuff like that. And then now it's like learning about decentralized social media platforms, like and how that actually works. And one example, of course, is obviously is Lens protocol. And what does that actually mean? Like having the data decentralized, where there's like this complete social network that anybody can tap into, and anybody can now build an app on. If you want to make your own social media app on Lens protocol, all of the, in a weird way, all of the people are already there. Like Facebook has its own data set, right? Another example, like TikTok and Facebook do not work off of the same data. If you join TikTok, your information is in TikTok's database. Facebook doesn't have access to that. If you join Facebook, that's in their database. It doesn't get shared to LinkedIn or anywhere else. So those are like very centralized. Whereas if you join Lens Protocol, that's all on chain. And now if anybody wants to build a social app on Lens Protocol, like we're all there. They can just build it with that data set. So it's a very decentralized data set. So education is going to be wildly important.
Yeah, that's great. And so please don't be shy about asking question. If you have a question for Carly, just raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. And I have one last question regarding the future, right? How do you think Web3 communities will evolve over the next few years? I know it's hard to tell, but I love to hear what you have to say about it.
I actually was reading this report on like the way the world is gonna go. So I think it was actually put out by the intelligence agency. I can post it in our Discord after if you guys want, but it's like the world report outlook for like 20 to 2045. And there was a lot of positive things. Um, it said that data was going to be like a major industry that kept on growing. And in terms of like the world, uh, weirdly enough, it said that people are going to become more siloed into like their own communities based on um, like region and stuff like that. And so I found that kind of interesting and also kind of sad, um, because in a weird way it took away from people being more collaborative. If you read the entire paper, it'll make more sense. But then I started thinking about Web3 and how just because we're all kind of joining these communities, or like we feel like a camaraderie ship when we join a certain community, whether that's like an NFT profile picture community and you feel like a sense of identity because of that, or in an educational community, it doesn't mean that you can't collaborate amongst each other and be inclusive with other communities. So I think in the future, I know this might be a weird answer, but based on that, I think that we're going to see more communities form, and hopefully we continue to keep this view of decentralization. But I really can't say. But I think it'll be exciting. And I think Web3 will bring a lot of like really cool things like AR and VR, and that, yeah, I don't know. I'm just like excited to see what happens. I can't I guess prophesize this point.
Yeah, but nobody can. But we have I think if we are here is because we are thinking good things are coming next. So we have we have optimism about the future. But it's always exciting to know what you have in mind. And of course, we can speak about this for hours. And I would love to have hours to talk to you. But I would love if you want to drop those links on the channel, on the Discord channel. I think that's great. It's always good to have like new ideas and these reports and these studies regarding the future of the space. I love to read those. And yeah, I don't know if you want to add something, probably I don't know, recommendation or suggestions or anything you want to like add to this topic, probably for people who's starting their communities or starting managing communities, any suggestion or tip that can be useful?
Yeah, I guess my last tip would be, especially because we're talking about Web3 communities, that it does take some education, right? And there's new tools coming out all the time. But one of the best things that I think I ever did for community building and bringing Web3 into it was to set time aside, like once a week, to actually. Sorry, I was like sitting up and the air went out of my stomach. Would be to actually like I set time aside every week to start learning about new things. So, last week was a deep dive into Lens protocol, and so I started talking to people that were making things on Lens. I started watching a bunch of videos, and I started watching Nader build on his YouTube channel. So he's the developer relations for Lens protocol, and he actually walks you through how to build a decentralized social media app and all this stuff. And so, if you're going to be a Web3 community manager, you have to set time aside for self education. It's so crucial. It does take a lot, but I think in the end, it'll open you up to more opportunities. And it'll allow you to actually like engage with your community members in an educational way going forward. And then also to like network. There's so many amazing community managers out there and social media managers and people building in this space that the more you can learn from other people, um, I think that's crucial. Like nothing is a competition. It's more about collaboration. And I know I've been in community spaces for a while now, but I learned something new every single day about community and about how it matters to businesses and what we're actually creating here. So I would say collaborate, reach out to people, set time aside each week to learn, and don't be shy to like experiment with community tools. One of my favorite ones right now is Orbit. You do have to filter between. It allows you to like keep track of who's in your community and who joins your community and who's new. But it also allows you to see like who's interacting with your social channels. So if you have a community hub on Discord or on Circle or something like that, you can set it up to kind of monitor your community. But also you can add Twitter or Instagram or other social channels to Orbit, and that's what it does. It keeps track of like who has followed your Twitter, who's most actively engaging in your Twitter, um, and who are you now connected with. And the future will only get more crazy with that kind of stuff, with like AI also assisting and helping us to see like who's making the most connections in our community. So playing around with new tools that come out is also really cool. And I would say any community manager who hasn't checked that out, that'd be where I would start because Orbit is really cool. And then you'll start going down the rabbit hole. There's like hundreds of other tools that you'll have to make the decision to use or not. But yeah, that's my advice.
Well, those are great tips. I hope you all took notes. I'm sure I did. And yeah, thank you, Carly. This was a great conversation. Hope to have you soon. And remember, you have Carly on our Discord if you were too shy to ask questions today, but you want to ask her any other questions. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Daniel, for your comments and questions. And yeah, see you again next week. And thank you all for being here.